So this next little portion is called Playing with Fire, and it is on page 400. Says, the only illumination in this tent comes from the fire. The flames are a radiant, flickering white, like the bonfire in the courtyard. You pass a fire eater, elevated on a striped platform. He keeps small bits of flame dancing atop long sticks while he prepares to swallow them whole. On another platform, a woman holds two long chains with a ball of flame at the end of each. She swings them in loops and circles, leaving glowing trails of white light in their paths, moving so quickly that they look like strings of fire rather than single flames on lengths of chain. Performers on multiple platforms juggle torches, spinning them high into the air. Occasionally, they toss these flame torches to each other in a shower of sparks. Elsewhere, there are flaming hoops perched at different levels that performers slip in and out of with ease, as though the hoops were only metal and not encased in flickering flames. The artist on this platform holds pieces of flame in her bare hands, and she forms them into snakes and flowers in all manner of shapes. Sparks fly from shooting stars, birds flame and disappear like miniature phoenixes in her hands. She smiles at you as you watch the white flames in her hand become, with the deft movement of her fingers, a boat, a book, a heart of fire. All right, so this next chapter, the chapter title is made up of these Japanese symbols here. And one year I had a Japanese student in class who translated it for me. And she said that those characters mean stone child. That's what the characters mean. But that when you pronounce it in Japanese, it is simply pronounced Tsukiko. Okay, so this is the Tsukiko chapter. Okay, we are in the train. We're on our way from London to Munich. This is the day after her Thiessen has been killed. This is actually right after Celia just talked to her dad in the hallway and found out that Tsukiko was the competitor that survived the previous challenge. So she's going to go to Tsukiko and she's going to try to find out as much as she can about how to win, what was Tsukiko's game like, who was her opponent, all that good stuff. Now, if you remember when Marco, no, not Marco. I don't know why I'm not good at the names. Okay, when Alexander and Hector were arguing, and Alexander spotted Marco in a crowd, and he was like following him with his eyes. And Hector said, "You always get too attached to your people." And then Alexander came back with, "Yeah, well, at least mine don't all take themselves out of the game." Okay, so we can assume that whoever Tsukiko's opponent was did that, took herself out of the game. Okay, so let's hear all about it. The train is unremarkable as it chugs across the countryside, puffing clouds of gray smoke into the air. The engine is almost entirely black. The cars it pulls are equally as monochromatic. Those with windows have glass that is tinted and shadowed. Those without are dark as coal. It is silent as it travels, no whistles or horns. The wheels on the track are not screeching but gliding smoothly and quietly. It passes almost unnoticed along its route, making no stops. From the exterior, it appears to be a coal train or something similar. It is utterly unremarkable. Why do you think the train is able to travel so slowly? It's very nondescript. It's just very plain on the outside. And this is obviously for a certain purpose, which is that so that the people it passes by like don't pay any kind of attention to it. The interior is a different story. Inside the train is opulent, gilded, and warm. Most of the passengers' cars are lined with thick patterned carpets, upholstered in velvets and burgundies and violets and creams, as though they have been dipped in a sunset, hovering at twilight and holding on to the colors before they fade to midnight and stars. There are lights in sconces lining the corridors, cascades of crystals falling from them and swaying with the motion of the train, soothing and serene. Shortly after its departure, Celia places the leather-bound book safely away, camouflaged in plain sight amongst her own volumes. She changes from her blood-stained gown to a flowing one in moonlight gray, bound with ribbons in black, white, and charcoal, which had been one of Friedrich's particular favorites. The ribbons drift behind her as she makes her way down the train. She stops at the only door that has two calligraphed characters as well as a handwritten name on the tag next to it. Her polite knock is answered immediately, inviting her inside. While most of the train compartments are saturated with color, Tsukiko's private car is almost completely neutral, a bare space surrounded by paper screens and curtains of raw silk, perfumed with the scent of ginger and cream. Tsukiko sits on the floor in the center of the room wearing a red kimono, a beating crimson heart in the pale chamber. And she is not alone. Isabel lies on the floor with her head in Tsukiko's lap, sobbing softly. I did not mean to interrupt, Celia says. She hesitates in the doorway, ready to slide the door closed again. You are not interrupting, Tsukiko says, beckoning her inside. Perhaps you will be able to help me convince Isabel that she is in need of some rest. Okay, so when Celia shows up, Isabel is in there. Isabel has been crying. She's distraught because this man, that she's been following around at this circus for years, just pretty much told her that it's over, that it's been over for a really long time, and that he's in fact in love with Celia. This could be kind of awkward between Celia and Isabel as well. Celia says nothing, but Isabel wipes her eyes, nodding as she stands. Thank you, Kiko, she says, smoothing out the wrinkles in her gown. Tsukiko remains seated, her attention on Celia. Isabel stops next to Celia as she makes her way to the door. I'm sorry about her, Thiessen, she says. I am as well. For a moment, Celia thinks Isabel means to embrace her, but instead, she only nods before leaving, sliding the door closed behind her. The last hours have been long for all of us, Tsukiko says, after Isabel has departed. You need tea, she adds, before Celia can explain why she is there. Tsukiko sits her down on a cushion and walks silently to the end of the car, fetching her tea supplies from behind one of the tall screens. It is not the full tea ceremony that she has performed on several occasions over the years, but as Tsukiko slowly prepares 2 bowls of green matcha, it is beautiful and calming nonetheless. Why did you never tell me? Celia asks when Tsukiko has settled herself across from her. Tell you what? Tsukiko asks, smiling over her tea. Celia smiles. She wonders if Lainey Burgess felt a similar frustration over 2 cups of tea in Constantinople. She has half a mind to break Tsukiko's tea bowl just to see what she would do. Did you injure yourself? Tsukiko asks, nodding at the scar on Celia's finger. I was bound into a challenge almost 30 years ago, Celia says. She sips her tea before adding, Are you going to show me your scar now that you've seen mine? Tsukiko smiles, places her tea on the floor in front of her. Then she turns and lowers the neck of her kimono. At the nape of her neck, in the space between a shower of tattooed symbols nestled in the curve of a crescent moon, there is a faded scar about the size and shape of a ring. The scars last longer than the game, you see, Tsukiko says, straightening her kimono around her shoulders. It was one of my father's rings that did that, Celia says, but Tsukiko does not confirm or deny the statement. How is your tea? She asks. Why are you here? Celia counters. I was hired to be a contortionist. Celia puts down her tea. I'm not in the mood for this, Tsukiko, she says. Should you choose your questions more carefully, you may receive more satisfying answers. Why did you never tell me you knew about the challenge? Celia asks, that you had played before yourself. I made an agreement that I would not reveal myself unless approached directly, Tsukiko says. I keep my word. Why did you come here in the beginning? I was curious. There has not been a challenge of this sort since the one I participated in. I did not intend to stay. Why did you stay? I liked Monsieur Lefebvre. The venue for my challenge was a more intimate one, and this seemed unique. It is rare to discover places that are truly unique. I stayed to observe. You've been watching us, Celia says. Tsukiko nods. Tell me about the game, Celia says, hoping to get a response to an open-ended inquiry now that Tsukiko is more forthcoming. There's more to it than you think, Tsukiko says. I did not understand the rules myself in my time. It's not only about what you call magic. You believe adding a new tent to the circus is a move? It is more than that. Everything you do, every moment of the day and night is a move. You carry your chessboard with you. It is not contained within canvas and stripes, though you and your opponent do not have the luxury of polite squares to stay upon. Celia considers this while she sips her tea, attempting to reconcile the fact that everything that has happened within the circus with Marco has been part of the game. Do you love him? Tsukiko asks, watching her with thoughtful eyes and the hint of a smile that might be sympathetic. But Celia has always found Tsukiko's expressions difficult to decipher. Celia sighs. There seems no good reason to deny it. I do, she says. Do you believe he loves you? Celia does not answer. The phrasing of the question bothers her. Only hours ago she was certain. Now, sitting in this cave of lightly perfumed silk, what had seemed constant and unquestionable feels as delicate as the steam floating over her tea, as fragile as an illusion. Love is fickle and fleeting, Tsukiko continues. It is rarely a solid foundation for decisions to be made on, in any game. Celia closes her eyes to keep her hands from shaking. It takes longer for her to regain her control than she would like. Isabel once thought he loved her, Tsukiko continues. She was certain of it. That is why she came here to assist him. He does love me, Celia says, though the words do not sound as strong when they fall from her lips as they did inside her head. Perhaps, Tsukiko replies. He is quite skilled at manipulation. Did you not once lie to people yourself, telling only what they wished to hear? Celia is not certain which is worse, that the knowledge that for the game to end, one of them will have to die, or the possibility that she means nothing to him, that she is only a piece across the board, waiting to be toppled and checkmated. It's a matter of perspective, the difference between opponent and partner, Tsukiko says. You step to the side and the same person can be either or both or something else entirely. It is difficult to know which face is true, and you have a great many factors to deal with beyond your opponent. Did you not? Celia asks. My venue was not as grand. It involved fewer people, less movement. Without the challenge within it, there was nothing to salvage. Most of it is now a tea garden, I believe. I have not returned to that place since the day the challenge concluded. The circus could continue after this challenge is concluded, Celia says. That would be nice, Tsukiko says, a proper tribute to your Herthesen, though it would be complicated making it completely independent from you and your opponent. You have taken on a great deal of responsibility for all of this. You are vital to its operation. If I stabbed a knife in your heart right now, this train would crash. Celia puts down her tea, watching as the smooth motion of the train sends soft ripples through the surface of the liquid. In her head, she calculates how long it would take to halt the train, how long she might be able to keep her heart beating. She decides it would likely depend on the knife. Possibly, she says. If I were to extinguish the bonfire or its keeper, that would also be problematic, yes? Celia nods. Okay, so Celia says, well, maybe the circus could continue. And Tsukiko says, maybe, but you actually have control of so much of the circus that if I killed you right now, this train would crash. She says, if I also extinguish the bonfire, that would be a big problem for the circus as well. In other words, what Tsukiko is trying to say is that between Celia and Marco, they control the whole circus. So if either of them were gone, then the circus would crumble and it wouldn't go on after that. Okay, so basically, What's going to become the goal now, and Tsukiko's about to mention it, but what's about to become the goal is for Celia and Marco to be able to make the circus independent of them, like to let go of their control of it and find other ways for the circus to keep running, which is a pretty big task, actually. Okay, so you have work to do if you expect this circus to endure, Tsukiko says. Are you offering to help? Celia asks, hoping she will be able to aid in translating Marco's system as they share the same instructor. No, Tsukiko says with a polite shake of her head, her smile softening the harshness of the word. If you are unable to manage it properly yourself, I will step in. This has gone on too long already, but I shall give you some time. How much time? Celia asks. Tsukiko sips her tea. Time is something I cannot control, she says. We shall see. They sit in meditative silence for some of that uncontrollable time, the motion of the train gently billowing the silk curtains, the scent of ginger and cream enveloping them. What happened to your opponent? Celia asks. Tsukiko looks not at Celia, but down at her tea as she responds. My opponent is now a pillar of ash standing in a field in Kyoto, she says, unless wind and time have taken her away. Okay, so proof right there that Tsukiko's opponent took herself out of the game by way of fire, I'm thinking. So basically, Celia has some time to try to make the circus independent of herself. She asks Tsukiko if Tsukiko's going to help, and Tsukiko says, not for now. I'm going to give you some time to do it on your own. If you can't figure out how to do it on your own, I will step in. Okay, so that's going to become the focus. We know that the night that Friedrich died, which is also this same time period that we just had in this chapter, we know that it takes a full year after that for Poppet to invite Bailey to come. For Poppet and Widget, who are terrified there's going to be a fire or something like that. So basically, you can see that for the whole year between Theuson's death and now, Celia's been working really hard to try to make the circus independent. Okay, so we just have to look and see if that is possible and if she's able to accomplish it. Otherwise, we know that the circus will crumble. Okay, so that's kind of where we're at in the story.